So, George, tell me a little bit about EY's restructuring practice. Why is this conference of interest to you?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the EY restructuring practices are very broad. We cover a lot of areas. So everywhere from insolvencies and liquidations all the way through to helping businesses improve their cash reporting, working capital management, and everything in between. We tend to work lender side or company side. I think 10 years ago, we were very lender focused, but now we're much more focused on the company, on the borrower. And we look to help businesses that are struggling either to manage their cash because of heavy debt pressures or working capital or the like. I mean, at a conference like this, it's super important for us to get out and meet operators, understand what's going on, and obviously you're only as good as the sort of understanding of the sector that you have. So that's why it's great to be here and to be sort of meeting operators and people who really know their space.
And I just had a chat previously with somebody from Hilton, and they were saying that one of the things they were looking at was helping to revitalise town centres because retail frontages have all closed, so therefore they're now having to think about, local authorities are having to think about how to revitalise town centres. So I suppose you're kind of riding on that wave.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think anywhere where there's change and move away from the traditional sort of big box retail, for instance, and shopping centres, that causes a lot of opportunity for us to work with businesses to help them turn around. And that is often around sort of repurposing space, whether that's on the high street or any sort of real estate really, and looking to make sure that if you're looking to invest and turn a business around, that you're doing it in the right way and doing it in the most kind of prudent and cost-effective manner for an investor as well.
So which of the panels that you've sat in on have been the most interesting to you?
I think I'd probably say, I mean, the panel that I was chairing, I'd say that was not biased. That was on the distressed, and that obviously is an area that, I sit on the distressed end of the spectrum. So that was super interesting for me to actually get a chance to ask some really experienced investors, questions that were on my mind, let alone what was on the audience's mind. Mm-hmm. The other area that I think is really interesting for me at the moment is ESG. And how that is just permeating across the whole spectrum of investment and businesses, whether that's kind of at the most kind of, I suppose, the end that you'd expect the most, like the kind of hotels end of the spectrum, where people want to stay in a kind of a carbon neutral hotel, for instance, and you see it where, maybe the laundry services, you're not washing your towels so much and all that, but all the way through to sort of supported living, care homes, schools, student accommodation, and just how ESG is such a big driver for any operator or investing at the moment. And that to me is, I guess, as a sort of human being in the world, I think is great. And I'm happy to see, capital being put to work to improve businesses in that regard.
Do you think, though, there's a degree of greenwashing going on in the industry?
It's a good question. I mean, I think not. I think people see through that. I think the time will come where people have to put their money where their mouth is. I think investing in ESG often means that businesses are slightly less efficient because putting these processes in place requires money and investment up front. But a lot of the investors that I speak to, they look for that in businesses that they invest in now because, push the clock forward 5 years, it's only going to be a more important factor for valuation and the universe of buyers going forward. So, I mean, I think probably at the most blunt end of the spectrum, there is a bit of greenwashing, but I think most people have the right intentions because, the institutional capital is driving that.
Yeah, I interviewed Gavin Poole of Here East, and he was saying, though, that one of the things they're trying to do is to focus more on the S of ESG.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of an obsession about net zero and carbon, but obviously it's about much more than that. It's about employing local supply chain, even down to food ingredients and so on.
Absolutely. And I think, again, working in the distressed end of the spectrum, the E side is sort of well understood, and I think we all know about sort of what net zero means or what it should mean. But the governance side, actually, for businesses is often where they get into trouble. And if there's bad governance or bad decision making and no one's being held to account in management teams, that's often where you end up in financial distress, and that's incredibly value destructive. So if anything, I sort of go to the other end of the three letters, and we're very focused on the G, and we always have been. That's just restructuring for you. Mm-hmm. We're always focused on governance, but the S is very important as well, especially where you're seeing sort of shortages of labour, and really, the workforce demands better, right? And I think that social side is really important to make a workforce proud to stay with the business.